Guys, welcome back to the podcast. Yes, it's another week. Last week, you didn't get an episode, even though I promised it. I was sick, though. It's very rare for me to get sick. And honestly, I don't know if it was allergies or a cold, but it was annoying because I literally still had to put out content and I sounded weird. I literally still have a little bit of some nasally situation going on, which makes me partly think that it's a cold or it really was allergies. Either way, you don't want to hear about me complain. You want to get into what we get into here on the podcast. So let me give you some updates in regards to what we talked about during the last episode. So the last episode of our podcast, we talked about the Johnny Depp and Amber Heard situation. Well, thank God, it's over. It's over. Honestly, I'm tired of both Team Johnny and Team Heard. I don't know if there really was any Team Heard. I really didn't see them. But I was tired of the toxicity of both because I felt like people didn't realize that in this relationship, Amber Heard wasn't innocent, but Johnny Depp wasn't either. He wasn't either. So I'm just sort of looking at, and maybe that's just who I am. You know, I love to twerk on a fence. I can see both sides of the situation. Do I think that Amber Heard weaponized the Me Too movement for her own benefit? And ain't no good gonna come to her. And honestly, I wish the best for Johnny Depp as well. I hope he also can move on. If you didn't know the results of this, Johnny Depp did win. Some people really did not see him winning, especially celebrity defamation cases are very hard to prove. However, Johnny Depp ended up out of this $15 million. $15 million. I think he got like $10 million in compensatory damages, $5 million in punitive. However, in Virginia, there's a cap at about $350,000. So she still owes him a lot of money. He owes her, though, $2 million. But if you subtract, then really she just owes him $8.3 something million. She is planning to appeal it. They both released statements on their social media. I did a whole separate town hall on the Kempire Daily YouTube channel talking about this. You don't come to the podcast to get rehash of the same stories, but I felt the need to give you a follow-up because we talked about it during my last episode. Another court case that we talked about during my last episode was the Todd Chrisley case. As you know, Todd Chrisley and Julie Chrisley were not under investigation. I guess I don't know the legal terms, the legal mumbo jumbo. You go to certain channels for that. You don't come here for the legal mumbo jumbo. Basically, Todd and Julie were in court because they allegedly defrauded the government and did not want to pay their taxes and lied to banks about how much they were worth to get millions of dollars in loans and things like that. Well, the verdict came back and they were guilty on all charges. Guilty on all charges. They have released a statement through their attorney saying that they're very disappointed in the decision. However, they do plan to appeal it. As you know, in our coverage of this case, I told you their former partner came out and revealed an intimate relationship with Todd Chrisley. As you know, there have been rumors about Todd Chrisley being gay for a long time. He's denied it. I've sort of let it go because I really didn't care, to be honest. I like the show. I'm not going to lie about that. And the show isn't canceled. Some of you, see, this is why I can't go by, and this is not you, between you and me. Some of y'all hit me up with some information like, oh, it's canceled, or this is, if I don't do my due diligence, a lot of times, I have to say, 9 times out of 10, the people that send me information are incorrect because they don't do their due diligence. That's no shade, but if you're going to come to me, do your due diligence. I'm still going to do my due diligence, but you're just making it, you're wasting my time. Look, at this point, you're wasting my time. And you know, time is precious. Time is precious. So Todd Chrisley and his wife, Julie Chrisley, who is facing more years in prison than him. And I know some of you are saying, well, her exposure, depending on what they caught her in and what they were tying her to when it comes to wire fraud or bank fraud, that's how that works out. I don't know if Nanny Faye, who testified in court that she signed financial documents without reading them, is going to jail. I don't think so. They may get the whole Teresa and Joe Giudice situation where one goes to jail at one point and another one goes at another point because they are raising the beautiful little girl, Chloe, and they also have their underage son too. That is a situation, but no one was surprised at the results of this situation. But I had to give you an update because I know if you saw my last visual version of this, you were probably like, we already know the results of this case because it came out late. I was sick. That wasn't the one I meant to press. It is what it is. This is what you're getting from the podcast. A little bit more unedited, a little bit more casual, right? Right? Okay. Anyways, let's move on. I just had to give you an update on those stories. MoNique. So if you've been under a rock and you haven't been following my other channel, Kempire Daily, then you missed out on my coverage of the MoNique versus DL Hughley. I can't believe that was just last week. Memorial Day weekend, all of that stuff happened. Well, I guess 2 weeks ago at this point. So MoNique went on a tirade for almost 20 minutes during her set at this Detroit show where she was co-headlining. Okay, that might be debatable at this point, with DL Hughley. That battle first started off as a battle of, I was supposed to be a headliner, and then they were going back and forth. She went on this tirade talking about his wife, talking about what does DL stand for. It was a lot. And then it went from there on stage to it all playing out on social media. So much so, MoNique posted so many different lives with her and Daddy. And then she really went below the belt. And I think this is where things turned for MoNique. Even the people that have defended MoNique over the years, I think they turned on her. And that is why she started to react and try to change the narrative of what was happening. So she brought up this video that someone sent to her. Because, you know, there'll always be a fan. Oh, remember when DL said this? Well, DL, in an interview with Sway, talked about how he did not protect his youngest daughter when she was violated. He admitted it, and he said, if you watch the full video, the full interview, he talks more about it. Well, he talks more about it on his own radio program after MoNique brought it up, but he wasn't the first person to address it. His eldest daughter, Ryan Nicole, went in the comments section and addressed MoNique about it as well. MoNique then responded to his daughter and said, my love, I hear you. I would love to have a conversation on DL's radio show. And we all were like, girl, no. So many of you want this whole conversation to be over, but I had to address it. You know, we haven't been together in the last 2 weeks. I had to talk about it. So DL dropped the mic the first time, and then he dropped the mic again, because when he first addressed this whole situation and laid out all the information about MoNique and what happened that day, I was like, okay, it's done. Then MoNique dropped the video about his daughter. And all of you were like, okay, you've gone too far. You're doing exactly what you accuse Oprah of doing on the Oprah Winfrey Show and bringing her abuser on the show. So after she did that and she felt everyone was turning on her, she then posted another video with DL saying things about a black woman's hair. DL finally went on his radio program and just said, I'm no longer responding to this woman anymore. And he lays it all out. He lays it all out in regards to his thoughts on this situation. And since then, all has been quiet. But let me not speak too soon. It's been a few days. MoNique looks like she's like, all right, I'm going to move on. I'm going to refocus this. And I don't know. MoNique is supposed to be in a new Netflix movie. Yes, Netflix, the place that she told us to boycott. She's reunited with Lee Daniels. We thought this was going to be MoNique coming back. Yes. And now we've had this situation. She even brought up Steve Harvey at one point. Steve Harvey addressed her on his radio program as well, saying, girl, you don't know me like that to know if I'm a coon or not. And they also addressed the contract issues. And honestly, I don't believe it's the world against MoNique. I don't believe it's the industry against MoNique. I, based off of what I've seen recently, have come to the conclusion that MoNique is her own worst enemy. And everything that she has said about these people, although there might be a lot of truth, she's used that and manipulated that in a way that has become very divisive, especially in the community that she swears that she's trying to protect. She didn't protect DL's daughter and her trauma. She used it and decided I'm going to put this out to millions of people that may have not seen that interview and re-traumatize his daughter, who we hear was very emotional about this situation even coming up in their drama. MoNique, I'm not going to be like what everyone else is saying. You need to go get therapy. We all need to get therapy. No matter if you're in a good place, bad place, everyone needs to get therapy at some point and should be actively getting therapy. But girl, do what you need to do and leave us out of it because you don't love us for real. You love yourself, definitely, for real. Let's get into some housewives stuff. And then, of course, we have to talk about my pride personal stories over the years. And I'll share all of that. Let's talk a little bit about the housewives, just because there's some interesting information that I haven't shared in my videos about the whole Kandi versus Marlo situation. So Marlo was a recent guest on Carlos King's new podcast, Reality with the King. And she says that she doesn't like the fact that Kandi talks so much about sex. It makes her uncomfortable. But then she went on to say, why don't you do more for the Black culture and your community? And a lot of people were like, really? And the Neighborhood Talk actually caught up with Kandi and brought it up to her. And Kandi, you know, when Kandi gets upset, and it must be a tourist thing because, I mean, I don't get upset that often, but there have been those moments where, like, I'm speaking and I'm just like, you know, it's a little shaky voice. And you've seen that of Kandi on the Real Housewives of Atlanta. And literally, while she's on this red carpet.
Speaking of culture, we just got a clip sent to us maybe about 2 minutes before you got here.
2 minutes?
So one of your castmates, Marlo, seems to think that you should be doing more for the culture and even said that you need to stop talking about sex. So how do you feel hearing that tonight?
So funny. And that's why she be so fake to me. Was it day or last night she was sending us the invites, her thing. She wanted us to come support her in her business or whatever. And I was the first one on the group text, probably the only one, no, one of two of all the housewives who said, oh yeah, girl, I'm going to come be there for you. She gets on my motherfucking nerves. I'm tired of her bullshit. She's fake as fuck. If y'all do not know, I have been doing way more for the community than all of them. I don't mind saying it. Okay, I don't always do everything I do on television, but if you want to go to television receipts, even the food drives that I did in the past, who was the main one trying to show up to help? Her. And she want to act like she don't remember? Listen, I pay off college tuitions for people I don't even know.
Okay, Miss Kandi Burke is giving back to the culture.
What? I put all my businesses in Black communities so that I can bring more jobs to our community. What's she doing? And to be clear, of all people that I've helped, she should know. Because when she wasn't on this show and couldn't get on this show for years, who helped her get another show on another network? But she wanted to kiss ass and be a friend of the show again on this show, so she let the opportunity drop. But it's facts. I got her showing a whole nother network when she needed help. And she want to get over here and show her motherfucking ass. She's getting on my nerves. Like, I literally, when I tell you, literally just was like, oh, yeah, girl.
Speaking about this, she's like, I need to do more for the Black community. And thing is, Kandi is not one to bring up the things that she's doing for the community. But when someone like Marlo calls her out for no reason and targets her for no reason, Marlo on the podcast was saying that, yeah, she's going to earn her check. She's going to earn her check. We can go back and forth. Kandi's boring. Kandi doesn't bring anything. Obviously, Bravo is keeping her there for a reason. Not just because they see value in what Kandi does. And honestly, I don't think Kandi's as boring as you guys make her out to be. She's not one of those housewives where I'm like, she needs to go. I wouldn't mind seeing Kandi transition to something else because Kandi's been there so long. She's launched so many different businesses. And you think that would be the last time that we'll see Kandi? Hell no. We wouldn't be, because Kandi's working on so many different things. She has another show with Escape and SWV coming out later this year. She just had Kandi in the Gang. And I know what you guys are thinking. Oh, you paid by Kandi. And then some of you will be like, oh, Kandi, he throws you under the bus. No, I'm a straight shooter. When Kandi's in the news for one thing, if there's a bad review about her restaurant, I'm going to report on it. But when someone's coming at Kandi, I'm going to point out the facts of what it is when it comes to what Kandi has brought to the Real Housewives of Atlanta. And Marlo has brought a lot to the franchise as well, has brought a lot to Atlanta as well. But the constant targeting of Kandi, it's almost bullying at this point, because it's like, girl, why are you targeting Kandi? Kandi has done a lot for Marlo. Advocated for Marlo to have a peach. Advocated and got Marlo a whole other show. Some people didn't know until Kandi brought it up recently. It was a show called Hotlanta. Shout out to our friends on Twitter. There's some more information to our friends on Twitter that I'm going to bring. Team Kandi always on Twitter. They pointed that out. They pointed out, well, the show that Kandi's referring to was Hotlanta, but that show fell apart and it was going to be on WeTV. That fell apart because of Marlo. Because Marlo wanted to return to be a friend of on the Real Housewives of Atlanta. But honestly, Marlo was smart because Marlo knew she couldn't carry her own show. That Hotlanta show probably would have been one and done, or at least it would have moved on without Marlo. Because the truth is, no matter what you guys want to say about Marlo having her peach this season, it's no different than Marlo not having her peach. It's the same Marlo. But if you're talking about an actual housewife, she doesn't have a story. What is her story? Oh, she's a Muntie. Every scene that we've gotten with Marlo so far this season when it comes to her being a Muntie, I've been sort of like, I'm happy for the boys in real life, but when it comes to reality TV and Marlo showing her mothering, nope. And then literally you have a scene this season where she's like, Kandi, I need you to show up for me and show up for those boys and invite us over. You're expecting a lot from Kandi when you've consistently over the years thrown her under the bus. For no reason. We're all like, why is she coming for Kandi like this? Well, on the podcast, Carlos King's podcast, she made it seem, well, she's going to make her earn her check. No, I think part of you's jealous of Kandi. And you're always talking about how many men she slept with or she was a sugar mama. I think at this point, Marlo, you're projecting. I think your skeletons will start to come out of the closet officially, because it seems as if you have something to hide and you're trying to distract from that. But a lot of people are taking their eyes off of Marlo and what Marlo was saying and laying their eyes on Carlos King, because this is the second time, at least that I can remember, where Carlos King has a guest where he's prompting a conversation about Kandi. So people on Twitter are talking. They're saying, well, Carlos at this point seems to be obsessed with Kandi and wants to just come for Kandi all the time. So Team Kandi always. Okay, yes, it's a Kandi fan Twitter. It's okay. But they say this. I'm not going to, look, I can't deny what they're saying here. They're saying that Carlos King's podcast is turning into the Michelle A.T. Alien show. How dreadful. How he goes out of his way to target Kandi in most of his interviews. Kandi really be having her haters pressed and obsessed. And that's when they go into the whole, remember when Escape actually reunited was because Jermaine Dupri was moving forward with a whole biopic about Escape without Escape. Well, apparently Carlos King was the one that was moving forward with this. He was the producer behind it. This is what they're alleging. So I know a lot of you are thinking, but didn't they just collaborate on the Encore and BET? That's been in works for years. Carlos has talked about that. So that's why you see Todd on the show as an executive producer. This was something that they're a part of. But apparently there is bad blood between the Tuckers and Carlos King. Carlos, we already know Carlos is messy. He's in reality TV. Carlos is having a moment right now. He's got a podcast. He's got a show. Good for Carlos. I'm never going to hate on someone thriving. And I'm not going to discredit Carlos's history of reality TV. But I will say this. Him bringing up Kandi to Sheree and Sheree throwing... He's producing reality TV on this podcast. That's what he's doing. He's stirring the pot like he did years ago on Atlanta. But also, one of the things that I noticed that Marlo said in their conversation was like, when he was talking about, do you think that Kandi is just sort of breezing by, on this show and not, really being activated? And Marlo throws him under the bus and is like, hey, and you agree with this whole premise. She throws him under the bus, basically. She's like, you know, this is you've said things.
Where is it?
So obviously Carlos feels away. I mean, Carlos has been accused of a lot of different things. He's denied being behind the whole Phaedra spreading the whole sex dungeon and all this, drugging situation. He has denied that. But I said the other day in my coverage of this whole story, I said, now I'm looking at Carlos like, did you? Phaedra has never thrown him under the bus when it comes to this, and who knows why. But I always pay attention to who's friendly with who. Carlos doesn't seem to be friendly with Kandi, but Carlos is very friendly with people like Nene, Marlo, and some other questionable people. So I'm kind of looking at Carlos now with the side eye. Speaking of side eye, let's move on to the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. Yes, Beverly Hills is okay so far this season. It's not terrible, and it's not because of Erika Jayne. If anything, a lot of people are saying that Erika Jayne this season, we could do without her. She's definitely trying to step up in different scenes, and she's definitely trying to have these ladies turn on Sutton. But this entire season so far, I think we're episode 4 or 5, everyone is going up against Sutton. Kyle versus Sutton. Erika versus Sutton. Crystal versus Sutton. Well, word on the street, according to the Bravo Life on Twitter, they're saying that word on their street is that Crystal is making up this whole dark incident with Sutton in order to be relevant on the show. Because you may recall, word on the street before this season started, producers said you better bring it because they were not interested in bringing her back. And I really was trying to root for Crystal this season, but if you would bring up this and weaponize race for a storyline, very disappointing and disgusting. But we shall see. Maybe she will tell us at some point during the season what exactly did Sutton say. Because based on what Sutton's saying, it had nothing to do with I don't see color. It had something to do with the pool and her daughter and her friends in the pool. I was like, this is not making sense. Garcelle, though, the commentary, the producing, I appreciate Garcelle this season. Garcelle's building a beach house, but that's about it. Garcelle doesn't have a storyline, but I will continue to say this. You don't have to have a storyline if you're interesting enough. Lisa Rinna, no storyline. But Lisa, in this recent episode alone, was like, what I miss? Mind you, she's mourning the loss of her mother, but she understands the assignment. She's like, what I miss? Come on, ladies. We're not just going to sit here and enjoy dinner. I appreciate it. You know what I also appreciate? The Real Housewives of Dubai. Look, I've reported and covered the human rights groups that have been talking about Dubai and their atrocities. I just want to put that out there. We are fully aware. Every time we recap the show, I put up a disclaimer talking about that. However, we can still love the women on this show. They are women that have a story to tell. And we are getting a little bit of a better understanding of what's going on in Dubai, the misconceptions, and the actual reality of living there. I know a few people that live there as well that have been in my DMs and have said, well, they just had a pride party. There's about to be another one. Okay. Doesn't mean... there are certain countries where people are celebrating pride and, certain things that they're doing there are against the country's laws. Sidebar, if you take a look at some of the state laws in your own state, you would be surprised. You would be surprised. And when I went to Dubai, gay marriage had just become the law of the land or it wasn't legal yet. Just saying. So I know a lot of people are saying there's a lot of atrocities happening in Dubai. Doesn't make it right. But there's a lot of atrocities also happening here in the United States. Or have had happened in the United States. We could debate this all day. However, let's talk about the ladies. So far, my favorites, my dream team is Lisa Milan, Chanel Ayan, and Caroline Brooks. Those are my dream team, but I definitely appreciate Sarah. I appreciate Nina. Nina just responded to me on Twitter from a week ago after I said, everyone take a drink when Nina brings up the living in the Burj Khalifa. She just responded. She says, it's the Burj Khalifa is the 8th housewife. You didn't know? Okay, Nina. I like Nina, though. I know some people don't like her. I like what she's going to bring. And I prefer her than my Taurus sister, Caroline Stanberry. Caroline, if we see Sergio one more time, what made you think seeing Sergio, as much as we're seeing Sergio, was going to be good for you on this show? We barely saw your husband on Ladies of London. This doesn't make you interesting. If Sergio was interesting, if Sergio was funny, then I could be like, I don't mind Sergio being there. Sergio is like this hovering ghost that's always there. I'm like, Sergio, leave. The girls are talking. And I'm not into those gender roles, but the girls are talking and you're just there listening. But apparently the ladies have alluded that this relationship is just for cameras. Really? I mean, he's hot. But really? I don't know. I also don't love Caroline's confessional look. She looks like an older woman trying to dress young. And I'm not even talking like young, like she's trying to dress like she's a teeny bopper. Like, what are you wearing? I like her tagline, though. Her tagline is my favorite of all of them, especially the way she delivers it. But Chanel Ayan is proving to be a fan favorite. However, there are a lot of people calling Chanel out for being so conceited. But after this week, when you find out what she's been through when it comes to her father, you're like, well, maybe that's why she always has to uplift herself. It's no different than a daily affirmation. As I've said before, you probably would hate me. Well, some of you do. That's okay. I take that negative energy and I use it for my power. Just saying. So I'm like, you know what? She, for me, is giving me funny. She's giving me fashion. She's giving me her genuine, like we were getting layers. And this is only episode 2 from Chanel Ayan. Lisa Milan is giving us moments. So I was in the middle of a fight between the housewives on Dubai because they're fighting back and forth about Caroline Brooks and her background. Apparently, Lisa on the show says, well, one week she's Jamaican, another week she's Afro-Latina, next week she's going to be Emirati. Well, Caroline really did not like that. She really didn't like that because she does have this history where her grandmother was taken into slavery and brought to Honduras. On both sides of her family, she has Jamaican blood. And I was just happy that both were Jamaican. I was like, we got 2 Jamaicans on this show. Well, Caroline didn't like it because she's like, Lisa knows the history. Well, the ladies were fighting. I woke up and I forget, Dubai's on a different time zone. I woke up and the ladies were fighting on my timeline about, oh, you know my history. And Lisa's like, no one's fighting. I like Lisa. Lisa's just cool. She's just like, I like her family. I like her shade. I just don't need my dream team fighting. Chanel Ayan was in the fighting back and forth. Ladies, stop it. But keep going. The big thing, though, here is don't hold a grudge. If you're going to be a true housewife, you have to be able to move on quickly onto the next thing. And honestly, the fight between Chanel and Caroline, I'm honestly not that interested. No, I'm not interested. A fight between Caroline Brooks and Chanel might be more interesting. But Caroline is not engaging. She doesn't want to be involved. Whatever to this whole situation then. I can see Caroline not coming back next season. She's brought nothing so far. She should be happy that Chanel's fighting with her, because if she wasn't, what would we be talking about at this point? So it's Pride Month, and I'm excited that we finally launched some merch for you guys to check out. If you haven't already, head on over to teamkempire.com/shop, where we prideified our logo, and I really had a really good time trying to design something that I think you guys would like, something that I would wear. And I can't wait to wear some of this during our live broadcast and in these videos and things like that. So be sure to check that out at teamkempire.com/shop. So speaking of Pride, so many of you have been asking, do you have any Pride stories that you want to share? I mean, I'm sure I could. I can't think of a specific one off top, but I can definitely tell you about my coming out story. My coming out story, I was probably like 21 years old. I was dating someone at the time. That probably was part of my motivation for coming out. I'm actually still friends with that person that I was dating. You know, not a lot of people can say that, especially in the gay world. How you doing? But, so I remember coming out. I remember telling my family. When I came out and told my family, we have still have not expanded on that conversation. They know, and that's what it is. And I don't think that's because they just moved on. I think they have decided to put that in a box, and they don't want to pay attention to it. It's because, especially right now, I'm not in a relationship. I'm not married. So it's not really in their face. Until I came on YouTube and I'm talking about it. And of course, now on this podcast. It is what it is. I got to live my life. I can't be in the closet at this point in my life. Although there are still some people in the closet. Your choice. Not me, though. Not me, though. And one of the things that I didn't realize until I posted something recently on our community tab on YouTube talking about Pride. And every once in a while, all of you, all of my, people that are supportive, people that are part of the community, or like happy Pride, but of course there's a handful of you that are still, really? If you don't want to have Pride, or you don't want to support gay people, you don't have to. You don't have to, but you also don't have to come on someone else's post and spew hate. Like I said earlier, when you send negative energy to me, I learned this from someone on TikTok. I'm going to take that negative energy and I'm going to use it for my own power, because it's energy. So I'm just going to use that for my own power and just continue to be great while you sit at home and be miserable. That's what those people are. That's why I don't do the back and forth on social media or back and forth in life, because I'm not going to sit here and defend this is why I should have equal rights. I mean, I'll do it. Don't get me wrong, and I'll talk about it all day long, but I'm not going to have a fight with someone that's just unhappy with their own lives and maybe can't live their own truth, whatever that truth may be. And it doesn't necessarily have to be anything when it comes to sexuality. It could be just living their own truth, working a 9-to-5 job, not doing what they really love to do. Who knows? But I do know one thing. They're probably quite miserable for them to spew that type of energy. And I used to say that in my corporate job all the time as well. For those that used to come in the office and they would be miserable and they would try to make other people's lives miserable. I said, there is no way you could be happy at home coming to work this miserable. There's no way. And if there is, that's a problem. Look, that's a problem. But Pride has always, I spent a good part of my 20s celebrating Pride. I know a lot of people are asking, are you going to go to the Pride Parade? I mean, there's so many different Pride parades that happen here in New York City leading up to the major one. I didn't go to last year's because I felt still, it was still like just coming out of COVID and I wasn't even sure if they were having it, but they did end up having a Pride parade. And I haven't been to the Pride parade in years. And I know a lot of people think because you live in New York City and if you're a part of the community that they go every year. No. Look, no. I think if anything, people do celebrate that weekend. And for me, it always was a weekend. My friends would be in town. This is when I had this large group of friends. My friends would come into town. Some would stay with me. And then we would spend the weekend just having a good time. I mean, I don't drink. Y'all already know that. They would be drinking. We'd go to the club. We'd get dressed up. We would come back, change, go back out. Oh my God. I can't even just thinking about all of that back and forth. I'm like, oh, Tired thinking about it. You get older. You get older. I mean, I could still do it if I really wanted to. But we did a lot. Like, and those were good memories. And that's why for those that are in their 20s and they're, 18, 19, live it up. You don't want to have any regrets, because when you're 30, 40 years old, you're going to be like, I don't feel like doing it. But then part is going to be like, damn, I never did it though. Live it up. Live it up. You only get one life. Well, technically. We can have that conversation another time. Live this life up. Live this life up. Have a good time with it. And that's what Pride is all about. I know a lot of people think it's just, rainbows and da-da. No, it's really being proud of who you are, just the way that you are. A lot of people outside the LGBTQIA plus community could celebrate Pride and just being proud of who you are, just the way that you are. So my Prides, oh my gosh, I've spent Pride. I've gone to the Pride Parade in Boston. I've gone to the Pride Parade in Orlando. I've gone to Pride in Amsterdam a couple of years ago. And I have to say this. I wanted to do it because I had never done it. But after I did it, I was like, yeah, I'm good. I don't have to do this again. I was guessing maybe I would feel differently about Pride because I hadn't done it in a few years. And I was like, oh, this is going to be somewhere else. In Amsterdam, they do Pride on the canal. So it's instead of, these floats going down the street, it's going down a canal. So that is really cool. But the whole culture of it, people getting dressed up and partying and all that other stuff. I'm not a partier, but I enjoyed seeing it in a different way. And it doesn't mean that I wouldn't do it in another country, just to see, is it different here in comparison to how we do it here in the United States or here in New York City? This year, I'm still on the fence whether or not I'm going to go to the Pride Parade. Even if I just go to the parade and just watch people be proud, especially our young folk be proud in their proudness. Because growing up, being as proud, of course, in the city was our safe place. Anywhere outside Manhattan, you had to really watch your back. You really couldn't be wearing these rainbows or dressing up or being, very elaborate with your look and style outside of the Village, honestly. So I used to go to the Village to break out and just be like, and not break out. I was just going just to be like, oh, safe place, a safe place. But now it seems as if a lot of different places, even outside of New York, are a safe place. Sometimes. So Pride for me, although it is Pride Month, it's more symbolic than it is about really going out there and celebrating and drinking and things like that. Yes, done all of that, gone out, had long nights. We celebrate Friday, Saturday, and then, of course, the parade on Sunday. We would come back and then go out that night, and then they would have those big club parties that would go on into the next day. The club scene also here in New York City is not what it used to be either, especially when it comes to gay clubs and things like that. There really aren't a lot. Now it's more like gay bars than anything. And again, I don't really drink, so there goes that. There goes that. But maybe I'll have more Pride stories throughout the rest of the month. But that's just an introduction to a little bit of what and how I used to celebrate Pride and whether or not I'm going to celebrate it in any way this month. You never know, though. The great thing about my kind of work, I can decide at a whim, I'm going to go celebrate Pride in another state or another country. I like freedom. Guys, as always, I need to know, how do you celebrate Pride? Don't forget to connect with me on Twitter at the Kempire or TikTok. Let me know if you're listening to the podcast, watching the podcast. Let me know. How do you celebrate Pride? What's your best Pride story? And if you have questions for me that you want answered here on the podcast, email me, KempireRadioNetwork@gmail.com. Again, that's KempireRadioNetwork@gmail.com. More information will be available in the description of this video and audio. Thank you guys for being here. Happy Pride. Yeah, I'm going to say that all month. And I'm so excited about some of the guests that I have planned coming up. Yep, we're going to have some more guests come through. And it's going to be a different experience. I keep saying that, but it is going to be a different experience here on the podcast. Different conversations that aren't just about pop culture. We got to talk about some things, and I'm excited to talk about them with you.